and welcome to episode 17. So the question today is it enthusiasm or is it hype?
To produce quality in people, it's something deeper.
Yeah.
It's something deeper in us that is transferred.
Yeah. Hype is literally outside in, somebody going, come on, whipping you up. We need people to encourage us, but if we rely on that outside in all the time, that's a dangerous place to live.
Hype evokes an emotion, but enthusiasm unlocks a belief.
We cannot rely on external factors and other people to hype us up, to whip us up, to make us feel better. We have to encourage ourselves. Hi everybody and welcome to episode 17 of the Winning Life TV. My name is Leanne Morgan.
My name's Gareth Morgan.
And we are really happy that you've chosen to join us today, whether you're watching this on catch up, whether you're listening to this maybe from your bed or in the car.
In the bath.
In the bath.
I sometimes like to listen to podcasts and broadcasts in the bath.
Well, thank you for that revelation.
No, using your imagination.
Now we've got mental
what that
pictures
looks like.
to go.
No, but seriously, some people might think, oh, do you know what? I might fancy that.
Well, if you're
Me,
listening...
Leanne and Gareth in the bath, but obviously by Gareth and Leanne on the phone.
So whether you're listening in your car or in the bath, or whether you're doing the washing up, whatever it might be that you're doing while you're listening to this, we are so glad that you have joined us, and we are excited to have another conversation with another question today. And I am particularly enthusiastic about this question. No.
That's a link.
Because the question today is all about enthusiasm. And before we jump into the question, let's talk about some things that we're naturally enthusiastic about and maybe some things that we are not so naturally enthusiastic about. So Gareth, what about you? What can you say just quickly off the top of your head is something that you know you don't need to try and be enthusiastic about. It just happens. I think I've got a few for you already.
Coffee.
Oh, wow. Okay, that surprised me. Yes, coffee.
Yeah, natural enthusiasm.
That is true.
If we go to a new place on holiday, we immediately look for the coffee shops.
We do.
So
we love a good...
What you prioritise kind of reveals, I think, what you're enthusiastic about, doesn't
That's
it?
true.
So coffee for me, like decent coffee, not just any coffee. So if I look and it looks like it's a good coffee shop, then I'm like, ooh. Because that's the sound of enthusiasm. Ooh.
Well, yours is that sound.
Let me just breathe some enthusiasm into your day. Ooh.
So you get enthusiastic about coffee?
Absolutely.
Number one. Anything else?
I get enthusiastic about football.
See, I knew that would be up there somewhere.
So checking the scores, going to matches, just facts, figures, stats. Bit of a nerd when it comes to football. Yeah, so
sorry.
This drains Leanne and this enthuses me. So yeah, naturally passionate about football, also personal development. So reading books about leadership and development. I will do that on holiday. So again, it's not just connected to my work. It's a natural passion. And then finally, but most importantly, my faith. And so my walk with God, I am passionate about that. It's the first thing I do every morning. It's a need. It's a desire. And so in a snapshot, coffee, football, development, relationship with God. What about you?
Anything or anyone else?
Oh, I think she set me up
if I have to dig for it, I don't want it.
Well, the fact you were asking it was obviously leading me away from you, but around all of those passions is, of course, my wife.
And your family.
And my family. Or my
See,
wife
I've
and my
just
family.
shamed you now.
No.
Shall I tell you why? Because that was going to be number one on my list. But now it's been wiped off. So I'm joking.
The shame.
I understand that you get enthusiastic about me. It's all good.
Well, I could have carried on, you see, but the reality is I didn't want to take up the whole of the episode just talking about what I'm enthusiastic about or passionate about. So yeah. Well, what about you?
For me, obviously,
you can fill in all the blanks that I should have.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fine. Faith, obviously, my faith in Jesus is a huge passion that I'm enthusiastic about. If you didn't know that by now already. And obviously, yes, my family, my husband, my children, our little addition of
Woodster.
our little Woody, our puppy, who I never thought I would ever love a dog, but I do.
You've become a dog lady.
I'm enthusiastic about that. But yeah, I think I'm enthusiastic. Those of you who do know me will know that I'm enthusiastic about cleaning, which has been a challenge with a dog. Let's be honest.
I think, but if you think about it, that's almost by design, isn't it? It's like you can't clean without a challenge. So you love a challenge, so you've got a dog.
Yeah, like this.
So it stimulates your enthusiasm.
He's a pampered pooch, let's put it that way. I do not let him back in after being in the garden till he's had everything wiped. Sometimes he even has a little sink bath after coming in. I'm enthusiastic about keeping things clean and tidy. So that is a passion. I was going to talk about something I'm not enthusiastic about, but we'll come back to that. And I'm enthusiastic about coffee, the same as you. I love going for coffees, all of those things. So I think we have lots of things in common, which is good. But what about one thing that we really struggle to be enthusiastic about?
For me, that naturally would be organising something.
Okay.
So organising something over a long period of time. So lots of kind of sequential thinking, logistics. I know the importance of it, and I actually love it when it all comes together, but the process of that, I don't have a natural enthusiasm for.
Okay.
What about you?
Mine's a little less deep than that.
Okay.
I hate cleaning bathrooms. So I love all the cleaning of all the house. I love sorting and tidying. I hate cleaning bathrooms. That is the one thing that I cannot get enthusiastic about. So while I'm enthusiastic about those things, I cannot stir any passion. And right now I know that our bathrooms need cleaning, and I am putting it off. I am procrastinating and thinking, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tonight, I'll do it later, because I just hate it. But yeah.
Administration as well, like receipts.
I love how you're coming into like the deep, important stuff when I'm talking about scrubbing toilets.
Well, some of us have got to keep the deep stuff happening while the others are doing more of the... Well,
I keep your toilet seat clean.
You do deep stuff, cleans. You do deep cleans.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so there's lots of things, joking aside, that we could talk about that we are enthusiastic about or not so enthusiastic about. I don't think I've ever said the word enthusiastic so many times. However, enthusiasm is really key. It's a really key thing for us to stir up and to have. So the question today is it enthusiasm or is it hype? What does real enthusiasm look like? Because, when you meet somebody and you can describe them as enthusiastic, they are naturally outwardly displaying enthusiasm for either you or the situation or whatever, life in general. And it's infectious. When somebody is enthusiastic and passionate, I find that infectious, like that has an impact on me. So today we want to look at that. Or is it something that actually you're just trained to fake enthusiasm, in which case it's just a load of hype? And we have to know the difference and how to cultivate true enthusiasm. Isn't that right?
Oh, 100%. I think it's important to start off by saying how important this is. So before we kind of deep dive into, okay, what's the difference between enthusiasm and hype, and, how do we unlock enthusiasm? We've got to, first of all, establish how essential it is.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, people may just stop listening or watching, because it sounds like, doesn't it, one of those can take it or leave it attributes. And I think that's sometimes because we naturally label people enthusiastic or not.
Yes.
Somebody will say, oh, have you met Deirdre? I don't know why Deirdre came to mind. Maybe all Deirdres are enthusiastic. Oh, isn't she a live wire? And essentially they're probably describing the fact that she's enthusiastic. She shows enthusiasm. Their
personality is a bubbly personality, or an what's the word? Outgoing person. Outgoing character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think people almost put people in categories of enthusiastic or not. But enthusiasm is absolutely essential if you want to produce something of quality in life. And that's producing work, that's producing a product, a course, a business.
Yeah.
But behind all of that, and even more importantly than that, are the people that I'm producing.
Yes, good.
So enthusiasm is directly linked to quality, because when you think about it, whenever we've done something of work that we've been lethargic about, because I'd say that's probably the opposite of enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
I know people say, well, unenthusiastic, but
Yeah,
let's use a
but
different
just,
word to kind of differentiate it. Lethargic, just like that. Oh, do I have to? Like
Even the word lethargy makes me go, ugh.
Lethargy.
It is. It's like one of those words, isn't it? You hear it and you think, oh, lethargy.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
don't worry, there's nothing that's gone wrong with your device when you just heard me go, lethargy. It sounds like something's
Gareth
happened
just often comes out with very strange sounds.
That's it, yeah. But it is, isn't it? You know, when, again, let's come back to the things that we don't naturally find an enthusiasm for. So administration for me, it's like, as soon as I can see that the need to do it, it's almost like our physical bodies just go into a slump. There's a physical reaction to things that we don't naturally enjoy. And so that lethargy then, unless we can find a way of switching that will affect the quality. We'll approach it from a just get it done approach versus a delivering my best approach. So I think, it affects the quality of what we produce, but it also affects the quality of who we produce, because people feed off something deeper than just what we say. They feed off the part of us that is in our core, and that's what you feel, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's because you can actually, it's not so much then about the thing that you are doing or the place that you're in or the circumstance, whatever, because you can be enthusiastic about that one day and the next day not be enthusiastic, which proves it's not always like we kind of had that joke at the start about what are you enthusiastic about. They're just more things that you like, that you naturally would automatically. But actually there are some things that on that list and on my list, and those listening, you'll have a list that on some days you're not enthusiastic about it. Like, because that proves that we are driven by our kind of beliefs and really what's at the heart of us. So even if one day we suddenly really loved it, the next day we might go, not feeling very enthusiastic. Well, the thing hasn't changed, but it's because our perception, our thoughts, our beliefs, whatever, have changed or are not aligned correctly. And suddenly we become lethargic about that thing. And it's funny how when, I can come to do, even say in work terms now, something that I really enjoy doing and I'm passionate, but if I'm in a bad place in terms of internally in my spirit and my soul, then I will go into that project or that work with such a lethargic attitude that I could feel my brain shutting down and even start to physically feel tired, even though I might not be, although right now I am tired all the time thanks to the dog. But actually it's like you just feel this shutting down of like, ugh, and the life draining out of you. And why? Because actually when I do it, I know I enjoy it. And yesterday or the week before or months ago, I enjoyed it. Why don't I enjoy it now? Why am I not enthusiastic about it now? And it's because something in me is not correct. I'm not stirring up or using what I have in me to encourage myself.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we start to go on a bit of a journey then as to, okay, well, what is enthusiasm? Because as I said, to produce quality in people, it's something deeper. It's something deeper in us that is transferred. We know that when you walk into a room, and those that are listening will have experienced this, have you been in a room where as soon as you walk in, it's electric? There's something in the atmosphere. There's something, it's not the decor, it's not the smell of food or anything like that. There's just something electric in the atmosphere, which of course is generated by the people. But you could, as you said, walk into another room with the same amount of people or even the same people and it feel like it's flat. And so same room, same people potentially, and yet something has changed. And of course, it's not external, it's internal. So that's where we need to go next in terms of this conversation, which is, okay, well, is it enthusiasm or is it hype? okay, well, let's unpack that in terms of what's happening internally in somebody to differentiate the difference between the two. So, Leanne, what would you describe as hype? Let's start there. Like, what is hype?
In every episode of the Winning Life podcast, you will hear Gareth and Leanne talk about the importance of getting a plan for your personal and professional life. That's why they have developed the MVP plan. When you develop your MVP plan, surprising opportunities and uncommon results follow. The MVP plan provides you with a clear structure to begin to see how your goals can turn into reality. Starting out with setting the goals, highlighting milestones, and planning individual tasks, you'll begin to see how the MVP plan is key to experiencing the results you've always wanted to have in order to make an impact in this world. Visit thewinninglife.tv today to get access to your plan and the steps on how to use it.
At its simplest level, it's outside in. So hype is literally outside in, somebody going, come on, whipping you up, and we've all been in those situations where in fact, I think years ago, I'm thinking back to, do you remember we went to X Factor auditions?
Oh,
do you remember?
Yeah.
In London.
Several times, actually.
We did. When we were living in London, it was easier to get there. We would apply for the tickets and go and not as contestants. We weren't going as singing. We
thought we'd let others have a chance at winning
because
it wouldn't be fair to dominate,
did we? Not as contestants. We went as audience members.
Yeah.
And I remember we went, and obviously they tell you to cheer and clap and things like that to create footage to use for when they edit the kind of the program. Because it's not exactly as you see it in real time. They obviously put things in case you didn't know that. But actually, before the contestants and the judges came out, we had the guy who comes to, what's he called, like a compare or...
Yeah, it's compare.
Is that right?
That is what it's called.
There you go. See, I didn't think I knew what he was called, but he would come out and he was a right old character, wasn't he? And he was trying to whip up the crowd. He was trying to make us enthusiastic because there was however many 10,000 people in the audience watching. And it was his job to make us enthusiastic about what we were about to watch. The problem was we hadn't watched anything yet, and we'd been sitting there for hours, queuing for hours in the cold in Wembley. Then you went and sat in and you got rubbish seats, which we did, although you could still see stuff. But it was his job to whip us up, to hype us up. And the problem is that enthusiasm, yes, we were there because we really wanted to see the stuff, but the kind of claps and cheers that he was getting us to do so that the cameras could sweep and take footage was not real. It was
generated.
It was generated. It was hype. And so really, as soon as he walked off stage, everybody kind of went, and back to kind of, come on, the consumer attitude of, I'm here to watch. I'm not here to contribute. I'm not here as a contestant. I'm not here to, I just want to watch and be on the show. So actually that is a great example of hype, how in real life we can rely on others to whip us up. Come on, you can do this. And actually, you're like, and we need that. We need people to encourage us. But if we rely on that outside in all the time, that's a dangerous place to live.
And there's a difference between encouraging and hype. Because like you said, hype is an external stimulus trying to evoke a reaction.
Yeah.
Okay. Which does work, but it doesn't last long.
That's right.
And the sincerity of it is can be questionable. But to encourage somebody, even that word encourage, N is from its root word of being encourage. And we'll look at that in enthusiasm as well. So actually, to encourage somebody, you're saying something to unlock something in somebody, which actually is an internal stimulus, not an external stimulus. Yes, you are part of the process. Yes, you are bringing something to them, but ultimately they accept it or not. So really their reaction to it determines whether it's internal or not. So I think encouraging is definitely different from hype.
Yeah.
And I think, therefore, one of the key differences between hype and enthusiasm is that it comes from within. Yeah. So enthusiasm comes from entheos, which means actually to be in God. So again,
That's interesting, isn't it?
Totally interesting. So what that means then is, I would again differentiate hype and enthusiasm, as hype evokes an emotion, but enthusiasm unlocks a belief.
That's really good.
Because entheos, to be in God, God is spirit. Therefore, enthusiasm starts as a spiritual disposition rather than an emotion. Now, of course, it creates an emotion, but actually it's a decision. So enthusiasm is a decision. So that therefore changes the whole landscape, doesn't it?
It does. And I love that way you explain that, because that's comes down to our responsibility. We cannot rely on external factors and other people to hype us up, to whip us up, to make us feel better. We have to encourage ourselves. Encouraging one another, as you said, is really important. It's actually our job to do that.
Oh yeah, totally.
But personally, we cannot rely on that. We have to kind of really encourage ourselves and create that enthusiasm in our spirit when we come hand in hand with God.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think this is really important, especially when we talk about, becoming an MVP, becoming somebody that is going to lead. It's unlocking the leadership ability that I believe every human being has, but not every person demonstrates. And, we've been in the leadership positions now for 25 plus years. And the reality is that I would say probably more often than not, you don't feel like necessarily leading, or you don't feel like doing some of the things that you are to do. And like you mentioned earlier, which I think is a really important point, even the things actually sometimes you are gifted for and you actually do enjoy, there's that moment, very often for me it's first thing in the morning, when actually, because it's something that I enjoy, therefore I place great importance upon, it's almost like a contradictory feeling I have of like, I actually know I love to do it and I want to do it, and it is the thing I am born to do. But right now, I feel like not doing it.
Yeah.
So again, like you mentioned earlier, it's the belief about the thing that has changed. Because the night before, I might have gone to bed really excited. Wow, great, tomorrow I get to. And yet then actually in the morning, it's like, oh, do I have to? So again, it's a belief.
Yeah.
It's a belief change.
And that's why we have to live from that, not from outside in. Outside in, where your body will tell you you're too tired, or it's too cold to go out, or all those things, or your thoughts will dominate your kind of mood. And then therefore you feel, oh, I don't feel great today, so I'm not going to do those things. Like you said, even though the night before you were totally enthusiastic about it.
Yep.
So it's so important to cultivate the correct beliefs. And so how do we do that then practically? How do we literally encourage ourselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, let me share this. There's a key, and obviously in the Winning Keys, I talk about the fact that the Bible is full of keys, full of keys that unlock truths and realities for our lives that God has given to us. And one of those keys is found in a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to the person that he was leading. So we talked about, enthusiasm being really important in terms of those that we're producing. So Timothy was his young Padawan. Do you know what a Padawan is? No, you're not a Star Wars fan, are you?
Sorry, Star
apprentice,
Wars people.
Apprentice.
I know that word. That's better. Let's stick with that.
Yeah, we'll stick with apprentice then. Padawan. And so he essentially, he's wanted to instruct him and teach him in the ways of the things that he needs to really become, somebody who can really produce what God has put in them. And he says this. He says, I remind you, Timothy, to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. So in other words, there's a gift in you and you need to stir it up. Now notice, he doesn't say you need to ask God to stir it up.
Got to do it yourself.
And neither can he say, well, let me know and I'll come and stir it for you. No, there's a personal responsibility for your own enthusiasm.
That's good.
Okay. And so that is to make the decision to stir that up. And again, he goes on to say, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind, which shows that usually fear is attached to lethargy. Fear eradicates enthusiasm. So again, it's reminding Timothy, in those moments when you feel flat, you need to stir it up. And you're flat because of fear, because fear flattens.
Yeah.
But faith stirs up. And, that action alone, or that belief, first of all, is really key. But I do believe it leads to an action. And, I'm sure he won't mind me talking about this, but our son, I was out for a walk with him the other day. He's currently being homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And so, when you go to school and there's a structure around you, you kind of follow the structure. And so when that's removed, there is a number of things that you then have to choose to do.
There's nothing forcing you. You have to do it for yourself, don't you?
There's a couple of parents who are trying. But no, absolutely. It's a learning point for him. But I took him out for a walk and I said, here's what we're going to do. As we walk, I'm going to shout out instructions. Okay, and when I shout them out, I want you to respond. And he was looking at me a bit funny, like, really? And there was nobody around, so I wasn't embarrassing him. But I was talking to him about the fact that sometimes we just have to do something physical to stir up that belief.
Yeah,
so
good.
that it's not a case of just saying, right, I believe this, and I do. Obviously, that's part of it. But sometimes it takes a physical action to trigger that this is what I believe. So we'd walk along and I'd say, right, jump. And I jumped.
I wish I could have seen that.
I didn't tell you about this. And then like, let's hug.
Aww.
And then
I'm coming for one of these walks.
Yeah, you come for one of these walks. Yeah, I've been looking into this and I've been doing it myself, or let's just like pray out loud, or let's just shout yes. Now you may think that sounds like hype, but it's not, because what I'm trying to teach him to do is to take rulership of his body, because the body turns us into lethargic beings.
Yeah.
And so then on the back of like stirring it up, right, this is what I believe, this is what I get to do, and this is how it's connected to my future. Yeah, because again, those are the things that are absolutely essential to kickstart enthusiasm as a belief, which then eventually creates an emotion and a feeling.
And that's really good, because that is so key. That, like you said, that's not hype. That is teaching your body who's in control here, teaching your mind, teaching your soul, hang on, you're not in charge.
Yeah.
My spirit is in charge. The real part of me is in charge. And I love, there's a different kind of version of those verses there in 2 Timothy 1, and it says to fan into flame. And when I think about, it says there about reminding you to stir up the gift, fan into flame the gift. Because when you think of a flame that's dying, and I think about like my candles, whatever, when they're dying. Interestingly, it's the way to kind of get it to come back into flame is to breathe on it, to kind of bring oxygen to the flame. That's often why a flame is dying, is because there's no oxygen going to it. It needs that oxygen to kind of carry on. So it's fanning into flame. So by fanning a flame, you literally create the embers, have oxygen, and they come back to life. We have to do that to ourselves. We have to breathe, literally bring oxygen back into our spirits. And the Spirit of God is often referred to as kind of the breath of God. And we have to allow the breath of God, the Holy Spirit, to come and breathe life into our spirit, so that we can then fan into flame. We can then cultivate that enthusiasm, which is so important, even for stuff that we hate to do, that we have to do. Let me tell you now, there are things that sometimes we have to do that naturally we hate to do, but you have to do them. And you're like, well, how can I be enthusiastic about this? Well, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about doing everything as if you're doing it for God. And that is how you cultivate enthusiasm, saying, God, I hate this situation, these people, this company, whatever that I'm in, this situation at home, but help me to be enthusiastic. And that says far more about God in you than the situation that you are in.
And when you're doing that, again, it coming back to something we've talked about in a previous episode, you're attaching the immediate to the ultimate. Because ultimately, again, from our point of view and our belief, everyone will stand before God to give an account of what they've done with their life.
Yeah.
So in that moment, when we're doing something for God, we're doing it with the absolute knowledge that at some point I have to give an account for that. So think about that as a principle. In order for me to generate a different belief in the immediate, I've got to go to the ultimate.
Yes.
So ultimately, before God, I've got to give an account for this. Ultimately, my vision says I need to get this all my finances organized, because if I don't, we're not going to hit this milestone. Or if I don't change my ways, my children are only going to have this example of how to lead your life. Am I happy with that? If not, if I'm happy for my children to become lethargic when they're older about certain things, then fine, don't do anything. But if I'm not, then again, that picture of the future, the ultimate, needs to drive the immediate.
That's so good. And hopefully the stuff that we've talked about today is going to help you and help you have impact and influence. And as you go into your day, as you go into your situations, your work, your family, you will feel more equipped, knowing that actually you can cultivate that enthusiasm from your spirit out, from the inside out. Don't rely on hype. Don't rely on external things. So be encouraged today, and, let us know that you're there. You can send us an email. You can leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, because we want to have a conversation with you. We want to get to know you and have a community in the Winning Life TV. So we'll see you soon. See you next time. From Leanne Morgan.
And myself, Gareth Morgan.
See you next time.
Take care.
We hope that you enjoyed that episode. And if you enjoyed it, please go and subscribe over on all of our channels on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, and not forgetting your favourite podcast platform. And if you head over to thewinninglife.tv, you'll be able to find all the resources available to you. Gareth has written several books which will help you on your discovery to building stronger and better lives. Come and join us for the next episode.